Hey, hi everyone. Good morning. Welcome to our April Lunch and Learn. We're very excited to have y'all here. My name is Ashley Bennis. I am the Clean Coast Texas coordinator at the Heart Research Institute at Texas A&M in Corpus Christi. Before I introduce our topic, I wanted to introduce our wonderful team behind the scenes that is keeping this going. I will be leading the Q&A and doing the introductions. Sarah Wingfield with Texas State University is going to be making sure that everything runs smoothly and all the tech is as it should be. If you have any issues with audio or technical difficulties, please reach out to Sarah directly in the chat. And then Jason Pinchback with the Texas General Land Office will be joining us to introduce our speaker. So today, our topic for our Lunch and Learn is strategies for enhancing wastewater treatment processes. And before I hand it over to Jason to introduce our speaker, just wanted to go through our agenda. We're doing welcome and introductions. Our presentation today is wastewater treatment plants. And after the presentation, we are going to have a question and answer session with our speaker. So please, throughout the talk, if you hear something and you find something interesting or you're curious, just please put it in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat throughout the whole talk. And at the end, we'll be pulling up those questions as well. So feel free to throw it in there when you have a second. And at the end, we'll also have opportunities for you to add questions to the chat. Just a few reminders. Please mute yourself to ensure that sound quality is good for everyone and there's no distractions. Use the chat function again to introduce yourself, let us know where you're coming from, and ask questions. We are recording this webinar and we'll be posting it later on our YouTube channel, so just be aware of that. And then please keep your video off throughout the talk because your face will pop up as we're speaking, but you will have an option to turn it on at the end if you so choose. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jason Pinchback with the General Land Office, who is going to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you, Ashley. Good morning and welcome to another installment of the Texas General Land Office Clean Coast Texas Lunch and Learn series, where we connect with coastal water resources and learn about ways to understand and enhance the sustainable management of stormwater runoff. But buyer beware, today's event is the weight loss edition, where we will explore the inner sanctum of wastewater treatment challenges. You may want to wait to eat until later. My name is Jason Pinchback, Water Resources Manager at Texas General Land Office, working under the leadership of Commissioner Don Buckingham. This event is sponsored by the Texas Coastal Management Program, and it is intended to be an easy-to-access forum where we invite subject matter experts to unpack their initiatives into bite-sized morsels and to share ideas that might be useful for neighboring coastal communities on how to improve their local water quality resources. Clean Coast Texas is here to serve communities by providing local governments, decision makers, and public with information, resources, and tools to better manage stormwater quality. The tools and guidance provided through Clean Coast Texas can help coastal communities implement measures to reduce the impact of land use change on coastal water resources. Some examples of these services include community planning and ordinance development, water quality analysis and green infrastructure workshops, grant development and project management, stormwater retrofits and green infrastructure demonstration projects, and other water quality management measures, including public engagement material development. To assist the GLO with this initiative, and knowing this type of challenge takes a well-seasoned and knowledgeable team of practitioners, the GLO formed a collaborative led by the Heart Research Institute at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Texas Sea Grant at Texas A&M, Texas Community Watershed Partners at AgriLife Extension Service, and Texas State University's Meadows Center for Water and the Environment, with engineering support from Half and Associates. I would like to thank Sarah Wingfield and Meadows Center as well as Ashley and Hart Research for co-hosting and providing technical support for these events. Today's featured presentation is provided by Mr. Travis Pruski. Travis has experience both as a public official and public administrator. After graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from the University of Texas in 2002, Travis returned home to Poth, Texas, where he served as mayor from 2004 to 2013. In 2017, he was appointed by Governor Greg Abbott for a 6-year term as a member of the Nueces River Authority's board of directors. In 2020, Travis resigned from the board and soon became the authority's first director of planning. Travis was recently named NRA's Chief Operating Officer and serves as the political sponsor for Region N Water Planning Group and Region 13 Flood Planning Group. Travis, his wife Denise, and their 2 daughters reside in Poth. I have a lot of respect and admiration for Travis's leadership and Nueces River Authority's determination in resolving water quality treatment challenges. We're excited to learn alongside you and to assist. Okay, so let's buckle up, put on your thinking caps, and get ready to learn. Without any further ado, let's welcome Mr. Travis Pruski. Travis, you're on mute.
There we go.
And if you can put it in presentation mode, please. There we go. We're good.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everyone. Yes, like Jason mentioned, if you are having your lunch, you might want to wait till after we're done here. Some of my pictures won't be so pleasurable. We'll be going over the hard topic of wastewater. So my name is Travis Pruski. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for the Nueces River Authority, and we're going to go over a few things on what we've learned in the wastewater world over the past 6 years that I've been working as an employee of the River Authority. So we're going to go down. So we're going to go over 3 topics today. One is, how did we get here? So we're going to go over kind of how all these plants are built, some of the funding mechanisms behind them, and some of those things. And then we're going to talk about where we are now with the current facilities. And then we're going to talk about some of the projects that we have going forward to help make those improvements. Okay, so let's go. How we got here? Majority of the facilities in our region were built, and actually most of the state of Texas were built in the 80s. What happened is Public Law 92-500 was passed by the federal government in 1972. And from that, the EPA started the Clean Water Act, and a lot of our current wastewater plants were built between 1978 and 1982, which means a lot of those plants are way past their average lifespans. But it did start the process of doing centralized wastewater treatment. It took a lot of cities off of septic, or there was just a lot of direct discharge back then at those times. These 2 plants that are in this picture here, they're 2 of our coastal bend communities. I won't name the plants by names. I don't want to put any cities on notice, but both of these plants were built in 1982. So kind of a look at the overall numbers throughout the state of Texas. There are roughly 2,500 wastewater treatment plants in the state of Texas. Almost every one of them direct discharges directly into a creek, a river, a lake, a bay, an estuary directly. There's a few of them out there that do some reuse. There's a few out there that do irrigation with theirs, but the vast majority, probably around 98% of those 2,500 wastewater plants discharge into all of those beautiful rivers and creeks you see on that map there and end up into our coastal region eventually. With that, there's roughly 6 billion gallons of wastewater treated a day throughout the state of Texas, which means the vast majority of those 6 billion gallons are being discharged into one of our waterways that we all love and care about. Kind of a closer look at the coastal bend. Those red dots there show you where the majority of the wastewater treatment plants are in our coastal bend region. There are 55 wastewater treatment plants in just those 6 coastal counties, and that's roughly equivalent to 22 million gallons of discharge a day into any of those watersheds from the Nueces River, the Nueces River, Petronella Creek, spread out throughout the basin. Some of them directly discharge into some of our bays, like Corpus Christi Bay. but that kind of gives you an overall picture of what it looks like. One of the things I should have done on this photo, I wish I didn't do, is zoom back out. But in this region, so this is 55 wastewater plants that go into this region. North of this, there's probably about 150 additional wastewater plants from the hill country in between this area that are discharging into those same rivers, creeks, streams, up basin. That is just talk about the overall picture we're looking at. I know we're really picturing on the coastal Bend region, but there's quite a bit of discharge north of the region, but a lot of people in the coastal region don't really think about. If you look at Lake Corpus Christi, is major drinking water supplier for the coastal Bend region. There is almost 60 wastewater plants that are discharging somewhere between the Nueces, the Frio, and the Atascosa rivers that are discharging into Lake Corpus Christi. So it's kind of food for thought there. So where are we now? With most of those plants being built in the 80s, your average lifespan on most of these plants are around 20 to 25 years, which means they reached their lifespan somewhere in the early 2000s. Almost every one of all the plants that we work with are still running those same existing plants. They're doing the best they can, but all of them are well past their operational lifespan. There's also a very large license operator shortage throughout the region and the entire state as a whole. If you look up in the newspapers, the Coastal Caller Times, or just any of your papers in Houston, Austin, San Antonio, you'll probably see on average about 50 to 60 operations, wastewater treatment plant operator positions out there through the state of Texas. So we have a real shortage of operators to do this. I believe there was a number that was floated around. We're at our last Texas Water Conservation meeting, that about 55% of our licensed operators are going to be retired by 2030. That's a very scary, scary thing for us to face as we're going over these next few years. Is not only we do have a current shortage, but we're going to see a lot of retirements in the next 5 years. And that's a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise that we're just not replacing. Fortunately, kids these days don't want to get into water as much as we hope that they would. There are some programs we'll talk about a little later about trying to get to this operator shortage, but that's a real issue we have. The other issue we have is that the majority of these collection systems, so that's your pipelines inside your cities, where you drove directly from your home to the wastewater plant, were also built in the 80s. A lot of them were built with clay pipes that have cracked and had issues along the way. So what happens in rain events is you have a plant, say it takes in 1 million gallons a day of wastewater on average. During a rain event, they could go 1.5 to 2 million gallons a day during rain events, which just really overloads these systems and causes a lot of extra stress and a lot of extra discharge into our rivers and creeks because the collection systems are just overwhelmed. I know we'll do some stormwater lunch and learns down the road, but these collection systems, all of them are inside your creeks and stuff. And so when those creeks are flooded, they're leaking into the manholes and different pipes that are located in your creeks that get everything down to your wastewater treatment plant. So I mentioned a few of these things before. Of the 55 plants, almost all of them are 75 years or old, are 25 years or older. We talked about the 22 million gallons a day that those two are producing during those stormwater flows. That average goes over 33 million gallons a day and rain events. So we've had some rain events last few days. So you can just imagine an extra 50% of discharge going through these plants that are not treating the proper jobs, are doing their proper jobs. And then on average, I was telling you, just in the coastal Bend region, of those 55 plants, I believe there's 20 job openings at the last look I did when I went through the job openings in the region. I believe there was about 20 job openings for those 55 treatment plants. So where are we at and why did we get to where we're at? We have money issues. Everything boils down to money. So these are two plants. You can see that they do not look very well. Well, the average treatment cost to build a new facility is about $24 per gallon. That was the 2024 price. I just spoke with a couple of engineering friends on a different project we're working on in a different area. And the prices they were getting, the low bid, I believe, was $34. per gallon. So that's even a 50% increase than what we were seeing just even a year ago. So the average cost to build a new plant is just getting extremely high. If you look across the state, that's about $144 billion need. And that's a little over 500 million for the coastal bend for the 55 plants that we have. That's about the monetary we need to either replace, improve, or build new wastewater treatment facilities. So the Texas Water Development Board is a fantastic organization. They handle all of the funding, and we've had so many projects and contracts through them. They are a really, really great organization. The issue they have, they don't have enough money to fix the problems that we have. So in FYI 2024, under the Clean Water State Revolving Fund grant application, they were able to fund 141 million total projects, or $141 million in total funding. 61 million was in grants, and 80 million was in loans. They had 192 applications in that cycle, and they invited 32 groups to join in that. Of the 32 that were invited to participate and go through the process of trying to get their clean water drinking funds, the total request amount was 702 million. So obviously there was a large shortfall that these communities were had. So out of the 61 million in loan, the $80 million in grants, there was still additional about 500 million plus that these communities, if they were to build their projects, get the invite, move everything forward, that they would still have to come up with in separate funding mechanisms, which might be through SWIFT loans, through the Water Development Board, or selling local bonds, those types of things. So you can see, even that we did get 32 groups move forward, there's still a huge financial hurdle for these communities to go out there and make the improvements that they need. So I'm going to talk a little bit more on the actual local level. Your citizens' average wastewater bill for the state of Texas, this is information coming from the Texas Municipal League that keeps all of these things. Your average wastewater bill is $36.83 per 5,000 gallons. So that's about 0.7 cents per gallon of treatment. Well, your costs for your daily operations is about 0.4 cents. So you're using well over 50% of it just to maintain the electricity, the chemicals, parts replacements, just normal wear and tear, daily stuff that you have to do to keep that plant going. So it's about, that equivalent is about $20 per 5,000 gallons. So it leaves you a buffer about $16 per gallon that these communities have extra in their budget to make wastewater plant improvements. Like, well, that's not too bad. Maybe we can move forward with that. Well, at the $24 per gallon to build, your actually cost is that's $120,000 is your cost per 5,000 gallons. So if you were to have to take a zero interest loan, which you can do through ZIF funds, you do a 30-year loan, you're looking at a monthly rate of about $333 per 5,000 gallons per customer. So you're looking at a tenfold increase in the average customer rates if a city were to go and build and replace their wastewater treatment plant, which, I mean, obviously that's not a sustainable process, and which is keeping most of these communities from trying to tackle moving these projects forward. So where are we going? We're going to talk a little bit about operation needs. We're going to talk a little bit about our regional wastewater plant that we're moving forward with. And then what we believe might be the solution is wastewater wetlands. So operator needs is a huge issue. That's one of the first things we were talking about earlier, is that how we need so many issues. We need more operators. Well, thanks to a grant we had with the CBEP, we did a 2-year training program in the Baffin Bay to help 5 wastewater treatment plants. And it was a really great program. We really helped get their current staff kind of up to date, get them to make improvements, and really teach, just how to run a plant to the best of their abilities, take care of these existing plants, how to do your testing more properly, how to waste, just a whole lot of things, the aeration. There's so many things we went through in this 2-year program. It was a wonderful program. We were just so thankful for CBEP for allowing us to go through this grant process and move forward. But unfortunately, that only helped 5 programs for 2 years. So these individuals we helped are really got improvements, but if they move on to other facilities, they retire or they move up in ranks at their local cities, we're going to go back. Those cities are going to go back to where they were with licensed operators or new folks to the group. There is a program through WEAT, that's the Water Environmental Association of Texas, and hopefully starting in fall of 2025, there will be some high school training programs so that they can get licensed in high school. If you're familiar now, like people can be, kids can go out through their ag departments, and maybe get training to do welding or electrical or plumbing, those types of things. Well, we're going to be moving forward with WEAT to hopefully start that in a few pilot schools this next fall to get some licensed operators. They can get their D license to DQ while they're in high school, get brought online to some of these cities who need operators, and move forward and get their C license within a few months. And that'll really help close the gap with some of the operation needs. We are currently have contracts with 6 cities to help them operate their plant with our own staff. That has been a successful program, but again, we're always looking for operators because it's hard to find good operators out there. But hopefully, with this WEAT program, we can really move forward and start training the high school level to move forward and show them that this is a great careers that they can get into. And yes, that's my cousin Eddie, by the way. He's our licensed operator. He's what every city needs at their community. Now we're going to go to regionalization. Is what one of the projects we're looking at is our Petronilla Creek wastewater plant. So we started looking around, and between the cities of Driscoll, Bishop, Robstown, and Benketti, we did an assessment of their wastewater plants, and the assessment came out that the best way to move forward with was to do one regional plant versus trying to replace 4 individual plants. So that is a process that we're moving forward with. We are excited to do this, but it's still extremely expensive to move these projects forward. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But your regional plants is really the most cost-effective way because it's the economy of the scale. It's just one plant, you don't need as many operators, you don't need electrical costs, the extra chemical costs, those types of things. You can really cut down on the cost and the overall expense, but it's still quite expensive. But one of the good things about a regionalization plant is you have these connection lines between these cities. Well, there are a lot of colonias there that are on septic, and it would allow them the opportunity, if they choose to get off of their current septic systems and connect through those infrastructure lines that we'll be putting in, and then get those communities off of septic and off of into the regional plant. I believe we're having, we'll check that day in with Ashley, but I believe we're having some topics in the future about the OSSF problems in the region. I got a little bit of slides on it, but I know they're going to be, that'll be a future conversation to talk about. With our project, we are looking to build a regional plant in the community of Driscoll. It's in the middle there in the red. And with it, we also received some grant funds from the GLO to purchase additional land, not only build our wastewater treatment plant, but to build a wetlands project there on Petronilla Creek. The location we picked is there's a main drainage ditch line that comes from the community of Robstown that goes toward Petronilla Creek. We are on that and Petronilla Creek where those two, that drain line and that creek merge. And one of the benefits of that also is that's kind of becoming industrial. If you're familiar with the new Tesla battery plant, it's discharging its industrial waste into that drainage ditch. And there's a few other facilities that are just north of it that are coming in online as well that are going to be discharging the industrial wastewater into that drainage ditch. So all of those, that flow will get to go through our wetlands. So we're really excited about this possibility. Like I said, mentioned, we did receive money from the GLO to do to purchase the land, so we're very excited about that. And we also got some money from the GLO to do some emergency repairs for the city of Driscoll and the city of Bishop. Those two facilities are, they have really great communities. Their leadership has been very helpful in this process and letting us do the work that we need. And these grants are going to get these wastewater plants that they currently have doing the best job they can before this regional plant comes online. We did receive a federal grant from the federal government for all of the engineering design of the regional plant. So we do have that 100% funded to get the engineering completion of the design of the regional plant. So we're excited to get that moving forward. Now, kind of the sad part of the story, or the thing that we need to work on, maybe a kind of a call of action for you guys to reach out to your legislators. And that 2024 Water Development Board Clean Water Act fund that we talked about earlier, we actually ranked number 4. Our regional plant was the number 4 ranked project in that project. The grant amount we requested was $120 million. That's what it was going to cost us to build this facility. Well, if you remember what I said, they only had 61 million in grants and they had 80 million of loans through that process. So our one project would have taken 90% of all the funds available. So we were only actually awarded 17 million. So if we were to accept that, we would have to then go out and do a loan or a bond for the additional 100 million that we had talked to help us build this plant. Well, obviously, if we talk about those numbers, that's going to be in the $300 plus per 5,000 gallons, which isn't feasible. I mean, you're not going to, citizens can't afford to do that. So we have to keep working hard through the funding process, and we need more funding from the state and federal level. I know they're coming up in the new legislative session talking about water. Wastewater is not one of the topics that they're really discussing at the federal level and the state level, but we really need to be pushing harder as a group to get more money to the Water Development Board and their clean water funds to do these projects. It just gets more and more expensive every year. These plants just keep getting older and older, and they're releasing more and more bad waste, and we need more funding to fix this problem. Then we've also looked at our next step of what is a cost-effective way to help some of these communities. That this is a project we're working on in the city of Refugio. That's a grant we're working on with through the GLO. Hopefully, we will be funded through that process. But it would, for this city of Refugio, you're looking at tens of millions of dollars to replace their wastewater treatment plant, which would again raise the rates of the average citizen there, hundreds of dollars, which is not a reasonable ask for the council or the city's citizens to approve. But we looked at other options, and we believe that if you did wastewater wetlands, so we catch that water as it leaves the discharge point of the plant after it goes through the processes through the plant, it has is to catch it through different cells and kind of polish it off through the different wetlands. We can do that for much less than 10% of that cost. This project here, we're looking at Refugio, we're looking at probably about $2 million in total cost versus the $20+ million for a new plant. So that's something we believe is much more sustainable and a long-term outlook that maybe we can get funded down the way to keep moving things forward. So would you look at that, your cost per 1,000 gallon or per gallon is about $2.50. So that's about 10% of what it normally would cost to build a wastewater plant. And we believe this project, we want to get this done in Refugio and show the area that this is a way that you can really move things forward. There's a couple of facilities in the country. There's one where I just spoke with a gentleman up in Montana that does this outside of Yellowstone, and they've had great results. But this is very common in like England and some other places in Europe. This is actually a common practice of instead of doing the traditional wastewater plants, they do these constructive wastewater wetlands. So this is a project we're excited to move forward to show that it is cost effective and a really good way to treat waste. I'm going to talk just a little bit about our OSSF, but I know we have future things with that. So that is a huge also problem with in our region. Thanks to some grants we got from the CBEP and TCEQ. Through 2025, we should address 50 systems, and this will be a long-term goal. Our long-term goal, of course, is to get these folks off of their septic systems into the regional plant. One of the things that was a little bit scary about our OSSF program is we received funds and we went through a evaluation. And could you repair it or did you have to replace? We had 100% failure rate on all the septic systems that applied for this process. We weren't able to repair and pump out any of them. They all failed. They all had to be replaced. So that was just 50. And I believe there's 10,000 plus in just the Baffin Bay region. I know we'll talk about that again later, lunch and learns, but this is a project that we really need to move forward with on how to either replace these OSSF systems or get them off of their septic and move to either their local communities or regional wastewater facilities. So I know that was, I would say, good news, bad news, a little depressing there. I'll be happy to answer any questions now, Ashley, if you want to cue that up.
Thank you so much, Travis. That was a wonderful presentation. And just a reminder for folks, if you have some questions, please place them in the chat and we will start going through them in a second. I would like to just get an icebreaker going, Travis, and was wondering if you can unpack the process at Nueces River Authority and the point in which y'all determined that you really wanted to tackle this. And the context is that these issues that you're explaining here are fairly common along the coastal region, and tackling these big issues isn't always something that jurisdictions are able to do or wanting to do for various reasons. I was wondering if you could unpack some of the considerations y'all had.
Okay. So we kind of started down this road. I believe it was about 5 years ago. I was invited to a Bringing Baffin Bay Back meeting. I believe Mike Wetz and his team and Kirsten Stanzel and some of her team had a meeting to talk about the Baffin Bay issues. And we were invited, and we started going through the process and realized we had the staff and ability to really look at these wastewater projects. We had recently just come off of, we built a regional wastewater facility up in Frio County on the, Real County on the Frio River to take the communities of Lakey and some of those systems off of their septic into a regional wastewater plant because we were seeing some water quality issues up there in the upper Frio rivers. So we started this process, and so we had worked together with them, and we did an outreach of the 13 wastewater facilities that discharge in the Baffin Bay. And it was just extremely eye-opening through this process. I mean, I was a mayor for 12 years, and I think I went out to my wastewater plant maybe 5 times in 12 years. It was an afterthought. It wasn't, our biggest topic. There was always, potholes and animals, that type of thing. We never really talked that much about the wastewater plant. And so we started communicating with these facilities and realized that they are just drowning out there. The operators who are running it are running on shoestring budgets. These city councils, they're really good group of people, but it's just not high on the priority list. I mean, people don't get elected because their wastewater plant isn't running perfect. They get elected for other reasons. So we started this outreach program, and we just found the dire need, and we just felt we had to tackle this by the horn, so to speak. With our mission is to protect the Nueces watershed. We can do a lot of things in water projects and flood projects, but if you don't take care of wastewater, what are we protecting when it's all said and done?
Thank you so much for sharing some of that story. Ashley, would you like to lead us through some questions, please?
Thanks, Travis. I appreciate it. Yeah, we do have a couple of questions. I have this one, and I think it says reuse, but I think it means reuse. Is it cost effective for coastal bend communities to consider water reuse? And is anyone considering it in the coastal bend as of now?
Okay, I'm going to go up to that map. So yes, water reuse is definitely an option for some communities. I know the city of Corpus Christi is working on a project. We call those purple projects. A lot of communities do use them for like watering things like, parks, golf courses, those types of things. But one of the, I was not to say concerns, is one thing we really do have to pay attention to is that you can't reuse all the water because we're reliant on those flows now in our streams and rivers to the flows that are coming at, we've replaced those natural flows from the last 40 years with these discharge flows, and that we've changed the ecology of the, communities. And there's the agreed order on the Nueces River, those types of things. If you, remove 50% of that flow coming downstream because you go to reuse, what does that do environmentally to all of our creeks and watersheds? So there's really a combination of, yes, reuse definitely needs to be part of the picture, but we can't reuse it all. But either way, whether you're reusing it or you're sending it down, we have to get the treatment process better. A lot of these communities, you can't reuse the wastewater plant because the quality coming out of it is just not good enough. I mean, the filter systems they wouldn't work. I hope that answers that question.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Reuse is a really good strategy, but yeah, it's a really good point to remind ourselves that we need those freshwater inflows for so many things. And kind of a similar question, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to speak to this because it's a private company, but someone had asked about the Tesla plant, just, why are the Tesla plant discharging into the creek instead of reusing the water in their plant? I'm not sure if we can answer that, but it's
So we
similar.
do have a lot of community industrial partners that work with us, and Tesla is one of them. They do reuse that water quite a bit. They don't use it once and then send it down the creek. Most of your industrial partners, they try to get 3 to 6 turns of that water through their plant, so they are reusing their water. No company, they don't want to spend the extra cost of buying extra water, so they do find a most cost-effective way, and they do try to reuse it. Just eventually, you can't keep reusing it, to the infinity. There has to be a certain part of discharge. Working with the Tesla group, they've done a really good job with what they are discharging. We don't have much concerns about what they're discharging, but that extra polishing that's going to come through the wetlands just helps take any extra things that could possibly come down the way, just helps the overall Baffin Bay area. But yeah, most companies do reuse. That's not just Tesla. That's everybody down in the whole coastal Bend region. They are reusing multiple times already.
No, I appreciate that insight, and that's something I think about industry that not a lot of people think about, but that's good to kind of note on. Okay, another question we have is how does a constructed wetland fit into the existing wastewater treatment plant TPDES permits?
So that is a kind of a little tricky question with that. So what happens is most of these facilities that we see on this picture have what we call grandfather permits. They're using the permits that were originally issued to them in the 80s and 90s, those types of things to move forward. So what we wouldn't be looking to change their permits, because quite frankly, if you make a change at a plant, you have to apply for new permits, and a lot of these communities wouldn't be able to reach new standards for their permits. So we don't want to go that route, because what good does it do to have a city that doesn't reach their permit with their plant still not working? What we're looking to do through these wetlands is picking it up from their discharge permit spot, cleaning it through these wetlands, and before it gets discharged into whatever creek there are. So we're not looking to change their existing permits. We're looking to collect it from that discharge point, reclean it, and then send it back downstream, so that we're not affecting these grandfathered permits that they need, which these cities need to. I mean, again, we showed you the math earlier. I mean, every city can't just go build a new wastewater treatment plant tomorrow. That's not feasible. So we're trying to work with them, not against these communities, and say, hey, we know you can't do this. Maybe this is the correct solution to, because we care what's happening at the end. Whatever happens in the middle through that process, through permitting, is not our ultimate goal. It's what's actually touching the creeks.
What's actually going in there, yeah. And kind of along those lines, a question related to the regional wastewater treatment plants and that planning that you're doing. You mentioned Petronila Creek, right? Or I think it was Petronila for a regional plant, right?
Yes.
Yes. Are there any other considerations or areas that are considering a regional wastewater plant, or do you have any areas that you think would be good for a regional wastewater plant?
We have identified a few other places. I am not ready to I guess release those places to the public, because it does take it's a pretty big political heavy lift to get some cities to work together. So we want to make sure we go through this process in their best interest before it becomes, I would say, public knowledge, because it's sometimes it's not always easy for some communities to work together. So we have identified some other places that this would be a good fit. The goal is to get this first project done in the Driscoll Bishop area to show that it is a concept that can be duplicated in other communities.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's really exciting, hopefully.
That's one thing that we really work for. We have a really great relationship with almost all of these cities and their wastewater plants. Is we're not coming in as the bad guys trying to point them out what they're doing wrong and get them in trouble. We're trying to be responsible partners with them so we can keep those lines of communications and try to make the improvements that they need, not come down with the heavy hammer like you need to fix this, fix that, or do this. That's not a partnership. We don't want to be the bully in the room. We want to help them find solutions that they can afford in their communities.
Yeah, super important. And for the community members joining us, hopefully kind of everything that Travis has gone over and shown just how, all of our wastewater treatment plants are aging and stuff, that this isn't, just a problem in one community. This is a whole regional, statewide issue that we're trying to address. So the more help and resources that we can provide and seek out, the better. Okay, so kind of along that line, like, is there any recommendations, suggestions that you can make for communities? You had mentioned that funding is a little tight. There's not a lot of funding for stuff like this as of yet. Reaching out to your elected officials is a good strategy to talk about this is, something we should be looking at. But what can communities do to prepare themselves or position themselves to apply for funding? If there isn't any available, what can they do in this downtime to kind of think about that?
Honestly, Ashley, if I had that magic bullet, I would have been happy to say that and move that forward. No, funding is by far the biggest issue. Like I said, the Water Development Board is a great group, organization that does its best, but it's limited by its funds. It can only do with the money that it gets allocated to, send out to the communities. So, right now in Austin, water supplies, that's been a big issue, and we all know it's a big issue, and they've been a big focus is going on getting money for the water supply issue. We need to be just as loud and vocal about the wastewater issue and start that next, hopefully in the next legislative session or moving forward, is that this is a real problem that we need to address. Just economically, what I know, I think Mike might have some of that information, but the fishing industry, the recreational fishing and commercial fishing throughout the coastal bend is, a huge dollar amount. What happens if we're not able to use these bays and rivers and things because we polluted it with ourselves? So we really need to be working together to push the legislation to get more funding for them. Hopefully we can get this first wetlands built in Refugio to show that there are other options to move forward that's maybe less expensive, and then maybe that'll help keep those costs down as well, or give cities an opportunity to really try to make improvements. The cities that we work with, they're not blind. They're not trying to be bad, and do, discharge bad waste on purpose. It comes down to money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's helpful, and I appreciate it. And I guess kind of what I'm getting at and what I'm hearing from you is it sounds like work on identifying your issues, what you have wrong, what issues you specifically have, and then maybe seeking out, like through the university and Hart and stuff like that, seeking out data that supports like, hey, our fresh water or our water depends on this economic input. We get all of this and it's so important. And then with all that information, approaching elected officials and kind of talking about that. Is that kind of fair?
Yes.
Okay, so I know we have Stephen Walden who wants to make a comment, which I'm going to get to very shortly. I just have one more question for you on my end, Travis, before I kind of look through the chat for more questions. You mentioned the training program, the funding through CBEP and stuff like that. Are there any plans, future plans, or thoughts about getting more funding for more training programs and more outreach with different plants?
We're working with WEED on this training program. We really hope that could be a really good future. The ag programs in our region, which we have a very strong ag program in all these communities, is they've really done well with getting kids qualified to a license for welding or electrical work, those types of things. We're really hoping this is the next, because being a wastewater operator, you can make a very good living in it, and you can really move your way up. But people just don't think about it anymore, or I'd say it's it for better reason. We do have an education program at the NRA, and we've actually been bringing local high school kids from Corpus Christi ISD to Driscoll and Bishop to show them those wastewater plants and how they work. And those kids were really excited to see this process, and it made several of them thought like, hey, I didn't even realize this was a job opportunity. They want to be outside. They love their environment, and fishing and being outside is kayaking, swimming, those things are all so important to our region. And they realize, oh man, if we don't fix this, we're not going to be doing these things. I mean, that's what really sold it for me. I mean, me and my family have fished in Baffin Bay my entire life. I mean, the King's Inn, I don't know how many times I brought fish there to get cleaned and eat as growing
Yeah,
up. And to think that I can't take my kids fishing there in the future would just be devastating.
right. That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that. Um, okay, just to jump to Mr. Walden, Stephen, if you would like to take yourself off mute, as
Hey, Steve.
so he's a partner, a leader, project partner of Clean Coast Texas, and wanted to make a comment.
Well, first of all, yeah, this is Steve Walden. I'd like to thank Travis for a great presentation. And Travis, you and I got to catch up on many things. We need to have a call probably even this afternoon. So, first of all, let me back up. I've been in the regulatory arena for 28 years at the TCQ and its predecessor agencies, and then I retired from TCQ 21 years ago at the early age of 50, and then I've been doing consulting in regulatory world since that time. So I've been in the water arena in Texas for 49 years. And I am the chair of Texas section of American Water Works Association's Small Systems Division, which we implemented about 6 years ago to help very small communities contend with water wastewater issues. So the excellent job that Travis did to paint this picture probably didn't even do justice to the fact that it's even worse than he said in a lot of places in Texas where what was kind of unsaid but implied, and I'll tell you directly, is that we have fecal pollution. We have fecal, microorganisms, viral, bacteria, and protozoans moving down into our watersheds, and they're in our beaches, et cetera. And in places, I can take you to, I won't mention the communities where we are working with communities that have surfacing effluents in their backyards and in their ditches along their houses and streets. So we have essentially a third world condition in many, many small communities around Texas. And because these are small, usually lower income rural communities around the state, they don't get much recognition, but it is a public health problem, hugely. And so, we're kind of like going back to like the 1890s, essentially, because we're not shining the spotlight. So we can't just do a better job of what we've been doing to get this done. We've got too deep of a hole. So as Travis mentioned, we're going to have to get creative. These things like constructed wetlands will be part of the solution. There's also solutions in that there are some small system alternative designs that are probably much cheaper to implement and easier to maintain. So we'll get into that later whenever Travis and I and the group from TWEET and TAWWA get together. We're going to probably put together an educational program in the state in the 2025. There will be a webinar to talk about some of that. The important thing to takeaway I would like you to take away is that this is actually not an environmental and a very, very specific public health problem on our beaches and elsewhere where watersheds occur or where people have just in their own neighborhoods are interacting with wastewater. And we have got to become aware of this. We've got to raise the alarm to our elected officials at all levels that there's, really it's not a list of problems anymore. It has risen to the plateau of public health crisis, in my opinion. And so I just want everybody to kind of get the feel for that you should, like Travis and I, you should also smell the smoke in the room. This is a fire, and we shouldn't go around asking for other things to be done. You put the fire out if you got a fire. And so that's what we've got to do, and we've got to find ways to do that. We can do that. We've got innovative ways, innovative financing, things like public-private partnerships can occur. We can do regionalizations. We can have satellite management, et cetera, et cetera. And there's unique ways we can line and replace collection systems to reduce the absorption of floodwater, stormwaters into our systems. On and on. We have ideas, but we have got to get everybody on board that this is a problem. I'll close it out.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Yes, Stephen's group is a wonderful group who does try to help small systems. There's just the needs are so big. I think Ashley, was it Mike that said when we had our meeting about a month ago that I'm the Grim Reaper when I came and was talking about this stuff. So I was trying not to be that bad today. But I wanted to highlight this page. This is just one of them, but that is an actual discharge port at one of the wastewater plants. So that lower right-hand picture is that's actually being discharged into one of our creeks. And the cities, they're trying their best, but I mean, it comes down to funding. They can only do so much. So thank you, Stephen. Yes, it is worse than what I I mentioned.
Yeah, I have to say that we told Travis he could only come on if he had some silver linings to share with us, not just all doom and gloom. So, thank you, Stephen. We really appreciate your insight.
Well, and what I've seen already is getting on the ground. These things are fixable. I mean, we there's triage things that we can talk about doing later at a different interval that can be done to kind of fill the gap until we get it really, permanently fixed. But it's like anything else in life. There's no like permanent fix. You have to stay with it, and you have to have a program to stay with it over time. It can't be just one time, one and done. And it's an exciting thing to have the awareness taking place right now. And I think we have got Texas beach issues up and down the coast. There's a place up the coast a little ways away from Coastal Bend north where it's far worse than this one even that we're talking about. So we've got, the GLO folks know about it. We're going to be going talking to those folks in about 3 weeks and trying to do an emergency triage out there where we've got definitely fecal pollution on beaches. So anyway, that's just, I think the exciting thing is we're starting to have awareness and there are solutions and we just have to get in motion here.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely an alarm, but lots of wonderful people like yourself, Travis, are working and addressing this issue. And the more awareness we can bring and the more people talking about this, I think could help us really achieve those solutions. I did see that from, I'm going to say your last name wrong, Mr. Todd Running. If you wanted to make a comment about training, you can take yourself off mute if you would like to.
Yeah, running is correct.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm at the Houston Galveston Area Council, and Travis, great presentation. Really enjoyed what you had to say today. We are in 100% agreement on the training issue. It's a big problem for everybody in the state of Texas. It's actually a nationwide problem, and one of the things that we've recognized is really hard to attract that young talent into the pool to get them into those careers. And so we're working with Association of Water Board Directors and WHEAT, a number of the big companies, Inframark, and then a lot of our local cities on building a website that's going to be accessible to everybody. And so that'll be kind of a three-pronged approach. One is to help attract young talent to the industry, tell them, give them that journey, what you could do to get into that six-figure career and what you need to do to be able to do that. But be working with all of the training programs in the state of Texas. And so you've got WHEAT has a program, Texas Rural Water Association has one. Many of the community colleges have them now, and they're online. And so have links to all of those programs, and then talk about how to help fund those. So a lot of those apprenticeship programs and training programs, the Texas Workforce Commission can help pay the tuition for those and actually reimburse employers for the cost of training. So we'll have that. And then we'll also have links. Employers can post their information on there. And so you'll be able to go and see what jobs are available in the industry. So we're working on that website right now. And we're going to have something go live in June on that. So we're really excited about that. And like I said, that'll be available for everybody statewide. So that's coming up. So we're excited about that. If you want more information or want to have more input on that, please let me know and we'll get you hooked up on that. And I just wanted to mention, I put it in the chat, but we have on May 1st, we're having a wastewater infrastructure workshop. It's going to be in Angleton. A couple of hours. We're going to have Texas Water Development Board, Scott Galloway is going to be there. Someone from the TCEQ, Texas Department of Agriculture, their CBDG programs. And then we've got Scott Bean with the Aldine District. He's going to come in and kind of give the perspective of someone who's been through the funding process and successfully hooked up a bunch of OSSFs into sanitary sewer, and just kind of talked about their process that they went through, just to kind of give some examples. So it's not so scary for some of these small communities, but the link to that is, I put that in the chat. And so if anybody's interested in attending that, that's available, but that'll be on May 1st. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Todd. I appreciate you jumping in. to share all that. Travis, there's one more quick question that I see in the chat, and if anyone has any more questions, please throw it in there before we close out for the day. Kind of back to that water quality question related to manufacturing. Does water quality have to be higher, or is there a difference between the water quality reuse in manufacturing than when you release it into nature? Because they're different standards.
They're different. That you can't really compare the two. It depends what process they're using, whether it's at a plastic facility or the battery facility. They need different kind of water. So I can't say that it's better or worse. It's very dependent. Now they do have pretty high standards and regulations on these industrial plants. They actually are harder to get their permits and are looked at harder with TCQ than cities are. So we are keeping our eye on those industrial customers, and we have been communicating with them. They have a much higher threshold they have to do, and they do have the funds and can be fined much harder than a city can on with their discharge, if that makes sense. So I'm not saying all these industrial partners are perfect, but they really do have a high standard to meet, and we do a lot of inspections and I'll walk through some of these plants, and most of them do a really fantastic job with what they are releasing. There might just be some additional minerals and some metals that maybe need to be taken out through like the wetlands, like we're saying, that the water's not bad. It does meet the TCQ requirement, but maybe it could be polished a little better before it does hit these waterways. That's one of the things we do look at. But overall, industrial partners have, I'm not saying they're all innocent, but I don't believe they're the problem. I think human waste. I know, again, with our bringing Baffin back situation, it's the human waste was the biggest impact to Baffin Bay versus any other factor.
Human waste through the septics, the on-site septic system issue.
Yes, either drawn like septic or the wastewater. I believe it, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was like almost 60% is that number of the bacteria and those issues we had in Baffin Bay was directly from human waste, not from industrial, not from environmental or ag or wildlife or any of those things. It's on us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Would you mind putting up? Do you have a slide with your contact information on it?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and any
you don't want to see these lovely pictures anymore, Ashley?
Yeah, love looking at them. Thanks for sharing your cousin with us. Any more questions? I'm looking at the chat. It doesn't seem like it. Thank you everyone for joining. That is Travis's contact information. If you would like to reach out to him and ask him any more follow-up questions or inquire more about any of the programs and stuff he talked about. It sounds like there's going to be more information coming forward that we'll try to share with our listserv, and a lot of opportunities there. And then I'm putting my contact and info in the chat as well as the Clean Coast Texas coordinator. There's a lot of information and stuff that we're working on. Communication with wastewater treatment plant operators, doing some assessments and stuff. So if you want to learn more, please reach out to me. Can you stop sharing your screen? I'm going to throw something up real quick. We appreciate everyone for joining today. And I just want to plug for our next talk that we're having. It's going to be on stormwater ordinances, best practices and lessons learned. We're going to have 3 speakers on who are going to talk about different aspects of the stormwater ordinances. So we're very excited for that. That is on May 15th. If you received an email, you'll see that come through soon to register for that. And other than that, we really appreciate you joining. Thank you so much. And we hope that y'all have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Travis.